All right, so we can go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today. My name is Nestor Hernandez, and I'm an Assistant Director for Student Engagement and Undergraduate Student Life. We are so happy and excited that you were able to join us today for our fourth webinar for the 2023 Summer Webinar Series. We're thrilled to collaborate and co-host this year's webinar series with our colleagues in the Office of Student and Family Support. Before we get started, a few housekeeping items. The information discussed today and throughout our webinars is specific to undergraduate students at Columbia College and Columbia Engineering and their families. Our panelists will present for about an hour, and we will leave time at the end for questions. In the Zoom webinar platform, you can ask questions using the Q&A submission box. And considering the large number of participants in today's webinar, unfortunately, we won't be able to answer all of your questions. But if you do have a question, we do want you to reach out, and also consider the fact that we are recording this webinar, which will be made available on YouTube in a couple of days at Family at Columbia. And before we get started with our panel, I want to introduce members of the Student and Family Support team. We have the Administrative Coordinator for the Office of Student and Family Support, Joanne Neal, today.
Hi, everyone. Welcome.
The Director of Student and Family Support, Veronica Bjorkman.
Good morning, everyone. So happy to have you.
And the Associate Dean of Student and Family Support, Matthew Potashnik.
Everyone from a hot and steamy New York City, it's good to see you all this morning.
And to share insights about life as a Columbia student, we turn to our experts, the Columbia New Student Orientation Program committee members, and student leaders who have experience living and learning in this community. To moderate and guide our student panel, I introduce Cristen Kromm, who is Dean of Undergraduate Student Life.
Thank you, Nestor. Good morning, everyone. It is so great to be here, thankfully in an air-conditioned office. It was a hot and steamy walk across campus. I am Cristen Kromm, Dean of Undergraduate Student Life. I use she, her pronouns. I have been in the Columbia community for a really long time. I started initially at Barnard back in 2000. I crossed the street to Columbia in 2006, initially focusing on residential life, and I've been in this role since February of 2015. My children have grown up here on campus, and this is a milestone year for me as well. I have an 18-year-old daughter off to campus, another campus, and I will be moving her in. So all the advice that I have been giving to parents and families and new students, I am sharing with my own. And we will see how that transition goes. I couldn't be happier to be here today and be even more excited to introduce you to the students who are really our experts here in terms of the student experience and what it is to be in life as a Columbian. And so as each of the students introduce themselves, I am going to ask that you introduce yourself with your name, your pronouns, your school, your year, and your major. And then if you could share what you got involved with on campus as you first entered the Columbia community, and then what communities or clubs and organizations you're part of now. And I'm going to ask Carolyn to kick us off.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carolyn Rodriguez. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I'm a student at Columbia College, class of 2025, studying architecture with a specialization in urban studies. I'm a part of the Academic Success Program here, also known as ASP, which provided me with a lot of my close friends. It took me some time to meet people outside of ASP because I was able to meet them before arriving to Columbia. However, I was able to make more friends once I entered my major specific courses. So working on projects for endless hours was definitely a true bonding experience. Throughout our shared knowledge, whether it was all-nighters in the studios or a shared first-generation low-income identity, I was able to build my community at Columbia. So I'll toss it to Jelij next.
Thanks, Carolyn. Hey, everyone. My name is Jelij Mehta, and I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm a rising junior in the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences, which we call SEAS, and I'm studying material science engineering with a minor in computer science. So unlike Carolyn, I found many of my current friends kind of roaming around during the first few months or so of college. And I kind of just reached out to people I thought would be fun and interesting to hang out with. I would ask them to get meals at one of our dining halls, or hang out generally in a dorm. I also joined the Ultimate Frisbee Club team my freshman year, which was really nice because I'd played tennis my whole life, but due to an injury in my senior year, I couldn't. And so joining a new sport, which I'd never played before, the team was super welcoming. I think you'll find that about a lot of our club sports. And I've made a lot of close friends through there, and I'm living with them next year. Next, I'll pass it to Nyla.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Nyla Julian. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am a rising junior in Columbia College, double majoring in film and English. I would say I definitely took things very easy my freshman year, and I didn't really get involved in very much. You know, coming from high school where I felt like I was maybe spreading myself a little bit thin, going from activity to activity. I didn't want college to feel like high school in that way. So I didn't get involved in too many activities at the start, and I took a much smaller course load. And I feel as though that slow and steady start really allowed me to see what communities I wanted to be a part of and invest time in. So now going into my junior year, I am on the board of the Film Productions Club. And joining that club and working on films with other creatives has really helped me to solidify a community of fellow filmmakers and collaborators that I just really admire and respect. I've been involved on numerous projects since I've been here, some of my own and some helping others. And it is truly one of the most fulfilling communities that I am a part of here at Columbia. And now I will hand it off to Timmy.
Thank you, Nyla. Hi, my name is Timmy Aldunja. I use he, him pronouns. I am a rising senior in Columbia College, majoring in drama and theater arts. I think I had maybe a different experience my freshman year. I came in 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic. A good amount of in the fall semester, a good amount of the class was not on campus. So similar to Carolyn, I did ASP. So a lot of my friends that were on campus, I had done the program with. And that's where a lot of my earlier friends, still friends to this day, were. But also as people came in the spring semester and my sophomore year, I would go to the Undergraduate Student Life space in Lerner 5th floor, where I found a lot of my friends who shared similar background and experiences. A lot of us come from an African background, and a lot of us were Nigerian American. So we related on, similar experiences growing up and experiences here at Columbia. And those are all still some of my friends in the community I surround myself with today. And I would like to pass it off to Asha.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Asha Roberson. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm in Columbia College, or we usually call it CC at Columbia, and I'm a rising junior in the class of 2025 studying earth science and environmental biology. So when I first came to Columbia, I involved myself in John Jay Hall Council, which is one of the freshman dorms, and I was also a tour guide first year. So these two things really helped me establish my community just with the freshmen themselves. The freshmen have to live on campus first year. So this was just a great chance for me to meet people from other dorms and not just like my floor mates in John Jay, and really collaborate with them. And I felt very close to not the entire class, but a lot of people in the class of 2025 by doing Hall Council, and becoming a tour guide, especially my first year, really helped me learn a lot about Columbia resources and just get a better feel of the school and how Columbia operated as a community. After that, so as of now, I am on the executive board of Columbia Science Review, and I'm the PR chair for that club. I'm also a member of Sprout Up, which is an environmental science club. We teach elementary school kids environmental science. And lastly, I'm on an intramural volleyball team. Columbia has a ton of clubs and they're all amazing. And it's just a great way for you to not only engage with your academic interest, but your non-academic interest as well, and have that balance.
Thank you all so much. I mean, I'm sure that you all heard there are so many different ways, right? Each student, there's some overlap, but for the most part, they really have blazed their individual trails. We do have over 350 clubs and organizations here. Students can get involved in our residence halls. We have an active Jewish student life through the Hillel Center. And so the idea that there are so many choices is so important to keep in mind. But I say that in another important piece that we heard from a few different students was the importance of taking it easy as you transition in, right? And there's no right way to do it. There are some students who are going to come in and they're going to do 10 things and it's going to be great. And there are going to be some students who come in and want to see what academic work is like, and they are just going to want to join one or two things, and they might want to do something they're comfortable with and try something new. So I really encourage everyone to kind of start to really think about the approach that you want to take as you enter Columbia. Talk to upper class students, your orientation leaders, your RAs, crew captains, and the committee. Even here, they'll be around through all of orientation, but there's so many people who want to help you create that right experience for you. And hearing the take it easy, I heard that from more than one. And so let's be honest about the transition from high school to college level courses. That can be in and of itself a little overwhelming, right? And then there's lots of students on top of that adjustment are also getting involved in their halls or clubs or sports or organizations. And there's still others who on top of that either need or want to work or hold internships. And so can a few of you talk about the jobs or internships that you held and that initial transition? And if any of you are planning to hold one in the upcoming year. For this one, I'll start with Jelaj.
Thanks, Dean Kromm. So I've been a research assistant at the Gang Lab, which is part of the chemical engineering department since the spring semester of my freshman year. So during my freshman year, I worked for free and I was taught a lot by the PhD students, master's students, and my PI, which is primary investigator. I got paid through C's grants my freshman summer, and I did research for credit through my sophomore year. I think lab work is an incredible opportunity and is surprisingly easy and simple for students to get involved in. I personally cold emailed my professor, but there's also job board postings for research positions. And I currently also have a virtual internship writing a program for a researcher at the National Energy Technology Lab in Oregon. And that is through the Mickey Leland Energy Fellowship, which is like a DOE program, Department of Energy. And I found that through my professor and Columbia Lionshare, which is our handshake platform. And that has been a little more difficult to manage time-wise, but I think working on my time management skills has made it possible to juggle so many things. But during the semester, it can be really tough managing your time, especially with research. Overextending yourself is very common. It's important to set your boundaries on what you can and can't do over the course of a semester, even while committing to your work. And, taking care of yourself is really important, and making sure the things you have your priorities set on are going well is the most important thing. I'll send it over to Carolyn next.
Thank you, Jelaj. So I work in the Multicultural Affairs office, which offers a lot of identity-based work study jobs as well as casual jobs. Specifically, I'm the first generation low-income student coordinator. And in the Multicultural Affairs office, it's a truly welcoming space. And as a first year, provided me with a lot of resources, which motivated me to come and work in the actual office. So throughout the semester, I plan events like Be the First Dinner, where FLI faculty come to Multicultural Affairs and enjoys a meal with the FLI students. I also organize resources that cater specifically to students of low income and provide a safe space for FLI students in general. And as an upperclassman and then becoming the FLI student coordinator, it allowed me to give the incoming students a better perspective of what it's like to be FLI at Columbia. And also just, again, provide that safe haven for students that share a similar identity to me. So the work study job did allow me to work closely with FLI students and perhaps show them resources that they don't normally see on campus and help them create friends. So with the work study job, I only worked 10 hours a week, which gave me that flexibility to dedicate myself to my academics, but also have a form of income throughout the semester. And work study definitely does help provide that work and study balance. And I will hand it over to Timmy.
Thank you, Carolyn. During all of my time at Columbia, I've held a job almost every year. Initially, I started as a general assistant in the library, which I highly recommend. This is a work study job similar to Carolyn's, but I would recommend making sure you discuss with financial aid to make sure that getting the financial payments from the job do not affect your work study on your financial aid payment for that year. I recommend this job because it really helps you get accustomed to the campus and the many libraries that there are. If it wasn't for this job, I wouldn't know about the Northern Campus library, which I study at almost every day during the school year. I believe that working during the school year is great, especially for resume building. If you're like me, I didn't really do a lot of internships or any other programs during high school. So I feel like if you want to kind of build during the school year prior to, the very intensive and competitive summer internship time period, I think it's very crucial. Speaking of internships, I held an internship for my entire junior year at the Lincoln Center for Performing Arts. It was a great internship that worked well with my school schedule. And it was recommended by an RA of mine. It was a full year experience, so it was very important that I took the time out both fall and spring semester to balance my work at Lincoln Center with my work at school. I always tell people, I don't know what your means of staying organized is, but make sure that you practice it and make it a healthy routine. I'm big on to-do list and using my calendar. And as long as you can stay organized and on top of your task, internship and work studies and just working during the school year, I think is a very beneficial thing. And I'll be passing it to Nyla.
Thank you, Timmy. Yeah, so I actually have casual employment with the Columbia Center for Teaching and Learning on the medical campus on 168th. And I kind of want to stress that it is important. It's okay if you don't have work study allotted on your financial aid, because casual employment is another route that you can take to apply for the same sort of on-campus jobs that Columbia offers that pay equally well. I remember as a freshman, I was a little bit worried about the difference between casual employment and work study, but my casual employment experience has been really great. It depends on the sort of job that you get, but I found that all of my supervisors have been really supportive and understand that my job is supplemental to my education. So for example, during the final season, it's been really easy to talk to my supervisors about setting boundaries between work and school. And my current supervisor has even helped me to continue my job into the summer, which has been really incredible for supporting myself in the city for these past couple months for the first time. And the biggest advice that I will leave you with is just to try to get involved as early as possible into the on-campus job scene, because whether you do casual employment or work study, it can be sort of competitive. So.
Thank you again. And Joanne, thank you for sending out links as we're going along and naming some of these things so people can learn a little bit more about the opportunities that they are interested in. We heard about research, we heard about lab work, we heard about cold emails and lion share. There's ways, word of mouth, never underestimate that opportunity. This was reiterated a few times as well, but I just want to highlight that if you have federal work study, it's always a good idea to speak to financial aid to understand the choices that you're making and understand how it impacts your package. But those casual places and the casual employment on campus, there are so many offices hiring. And I'll underscore again that particularly on campus, but really even if you're working downtown, supervisors understand your commitment is your education first. And so at times that you need to slow it down because it's midterms or finals, as long as you're communicative and give them a heads up, they're generally incredibly flexible and will work with your schedule. But it is college and transition can be stressful. Some days can even be a little bit overwhelming. And Columbia has been described as stressful by some students. And perhaps it's partly the pressure of the Ivy League, partly the pressure of the hustle and bustle of New York City life, which is something that honestly a lot of our students are driven to participate in. And there can be stress. That is a normal part of a college transition, but we do have conversations about prioritizing your well-being and self-care. And that is number one, most important. And so in community, we also encourage people to care for each other. And so again, I want to be just, honest about transitions. And so I'm going to ask our student panel now to think back to a time that you were actually a little overwhelmed or stressed out your first semester and how you got through it. And now that you've had some time in the Columbia community, how you build stress relief into your schedule. And let's start with some insight from Carolyn.
Yeah, so first semester I was taking French, which I also took in high school. However, comparing my French courses from my very small high school in the Lower East Side of Manhattan to college French are two very different things. So language courses at Columbia tend to have a pretty heavy workload because they're normally 4 times a week, and learning a language actively requires a lot of time and dedication. So even thinking about the final for that course completely put me into panic mode, and I was very stressed out. And so what helped me prepare for this final was having a planner to organize my thoughts, providing myself with this visual schedule so I wouldn't have all of these ideas and thoughts in my head. Instead, I could visually see it somewhere. So keeping my spaces clean and organized gave me the peace of mind that I needed to feel like my French final was manageable. And now that I've been at Columbia for going on 3 years, I ensure to add time and space to see my friends. Your friends can be a great source of stress relief. So my roommate and I love to host game night once a week, and it's almost like a reward after all the hard work and dedication. Plus, it gives me an opportunity to beat my friends at games. So I'm a little biased when it comes to that. And I'll pass it over to Jelij.
Thanks, Carolyn. So for me, my freshman year started off pretty smooth classwork was, but I think when midterm season hit for the first time, my fall semester, it was a big shock. That's in terms of the difficulty of the exams I was taking. In high school, never really had that much trouble where I had to, study, bust myself at the library all night constantly. And so I remember going for a run with my friend right before my multivariable calculus midterm because I had studied so much and I just need to chill out a little bit. I never really realized how much importance there is to doing something like that. And without a doubt, that little break from studying just to clear my head helped me perform pretty well in the exam. And that was probably the first time, like I said, I realized that taking a break is important. So for me, working out, playing video games, and running are my main breathers. Our gym, Dodge, is a relatively empty super late at night and in between classes. And the Walter and Shirley Fanwang esports room tends to be less crowded in the middle of the day as well. So I have to find myself planning workouts or going to the esports room in the middle of the day. I know I have like a stressful week or day planned. And also for me, my freshman year, I didn't really use any organization, and that really hurt me, I think. Now my Google Calendar is full. I constantly plan meetings and events on there. And it's really helped me, get my day-to-day life back under check. Now I want to take it from here.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so for me, I would say freshman year NSOP, or the new student orientation program, was something that was a little stressful for me. I think NSOP can be a very beautiful experience, but I definitely personally fed into the rumors that if I didn't find all of my best friends during NSOP, I would never have any throughout my entire college experience. So I made every effort to put myself out there constantly, which was kind of hard for me because I think I'm a very introverted person. And what ended up happening was that I wasn't prioritizing my own self-care at all, and I kind of wiped myself out mentally and emotionally. And I ended up making my closest friends almost immediately after NSOP. And if I had known that that was to happen, I definitely would have been able to enjoy the program a lot more. But although it was stressful in the moment, I think it all ended up kind of working out. And now the friends that I have made are a major source of stress relief for me. My friends and I like to exchange class schedules at the start of every semester and plan out times for us to eat dinner together as much as possible. Many nights in the semester are spent studying for really long hours in Butler or whatever library is your preference. So it's really nice to have some scheduled time to meet up with friends and eat a meal together before we hit the books. And without that scheduled time, we found that we'd often miss each other and eat at odd times alone in between studying. And stress and isolation is just not a good combination for your mental health. So making the time to just relax and goof around and take advantage of the close proximity that you have to your friends in college, I feel like is important because it might not be something that you always have.
Thank you so much. I'm going to jump on that sort of pressure and orientation in particular. Again, been here a while and have definitely heard from more than a few students who really thought, I'm going to meet my friends, and if I don't meet my friends during NSOP, what's Columbia gonna be? And I mean, honestly, I think back to my own college transition. It took me honestly a real full year to meet the people that were really my people, you know? And so taking time and sort of giving yourself permission to hang out with some people. And then sometimes you might realize what started out, right? There might be a group of friends during NSOP that you're super close with. And then you start finding out what you do on weekends is really different and you might need to change it. And so part of college is also giving yourself the permission to test some things out, to learn more about yourself, and then sort of change course. It's okay. And there's gonna be some mistakes along the way. You're gonna pivot and you're gonna change course, and it's gonna work out. And so the highlights were sort of knowing yourself, getting yourself organized, whatever that organization is for you, and then moving forward with a plan. But again, I'll reiterate, there are so many people, upper class students, and people in so many offices like the Center for Student Advising, Undergraduate Student Life on the 5th floor, the Family and Support Team, but there are so many people in those moments of stress. If you haven't found that group yet, you can turn to any of us to help you figure it out or to get connected to the right folks. And again, sort of those friendships and figuring out if you're gonna be friends with people who are the same as you or different than you, that too is part of the excitement of college. And we really at Columbia pride ourselves on the diversity of our community. And you'll hear our new president and deans talk about our location in New York City. As you likely know, you will have classmates from literally all over the world. And we really do encourage those connections across similarities and differences. And so can a few of you reflect on lessons learned as you transitioned into Columbia and New York City, given where you came from? And Timmy, can you start off for this one?
Yes, of course, Dean Kromm. I'm someone who grew up in a predominantly Black neighborhood, and K through 12, I attended schools with very similar demographics. So coming to Columbia was a culture shock, to say the least. When my first week here, I remember experiencing like immense imposter syndrome. I didn't feel like I could fit into any groups, or I felt so out of place initially that I had to go home for that weekend. But I remember coming back with a fresh mind and just opening myself up to new people and experiences. It was difficult to start, and I don't want to say it was easy, but over time, despite just the external differences, when you get to know people and you're open to meeting new people, you realize how much of common interest and common backgrounds that you guys have all experienced. I remember that at the end of the first week, Activities Day was September 8th. And I think that was a great, thing for me to go to, because it introduced me to different clubs where I could find people with the same interests and same experiences as me. And there was where I found the BSAA, the Black Student Athlete Alliance. And that was like one of my first initial communities of students who, looked like me and had similar experiences coming to Columbia and at Columbia now. And that was so helpful in my transition from high school to college. I guess one lesson I learned from this transition is to explore the city. I feel like I can't say that enough. Columbia being in New York City is a tremendous advantage. There's so much culture and just diverse experiences around New York City, not just in Manhattan, but in, Brooklyn and all the other boroughs, Queens, the Bronx, everything. It's good to just explore. And as an artist myself studying drama, I love going to different, museums. A part of the arts initiative, Columbia and Barnard are free to many different museums that you can go to free of charge. There's so many parks to explore just to, get a break from the school. The city has so much to offer, not just in the art space, but just in any interest that you want to explore. There's probably something going on in the city related to it. So I always say what I learned from that transition is, if you're ever feeling imposter syndrome where you don't fit on campus, I'll just say take a break, get on the one, go downtown and just, you'll find a place where you are comfortable and, it expands your horizon just for overall well-being. And I'll toss it to Carolyn.
Thank you, Timmy. So initially, I remained with a lot of my close circle friends that I met through the ASP or the Academic Success Program, since they were the first people that I met after high school. And so once I got into the school year, I began to branch out and talk to more of my classmates who weren't first gen or from Brooklyn like me. This offered me a chance to learn about different perspectives and other experiences. And one lesson that I learned is that it's so valuable to be open-minded and understanding of other identities. And that's what truly makes Columbia a special place. And as a native New Yorker, being raised in Brooklyn, going to school in Manhattan, I still remained with a lot of the same BIPOC or people of color groups. And once I got to Columbia, I was able to meet different types of people from different backgrounds, different socioeconomic statuses, which can be something very new. And so it's extremely important to find people that you relate to, yes, but it's also very valuable to engage with the unknown and people that you've never met before. So I'll pass it on to Asha next.
Thank you, Carolyn. So one of the reasons I actually chose to come to Columbia was because of their emphasis on diversity. I went to an international school my entire life, and I was actively seeking out a similar environment. And now that I'm here, I'm very grateful to continue to be able to have friends from all over the world, different cultural backgrounds and experiences, because you learn that while we are different, we are all more similar than we think. So in that case, transitioning to Columbia was fairly smooth. But I am from the Midwest, and while I am from a fairly populous city, it's nothing like New York at all. So I understand if some of you guys might be a little intimidated by New York, like how do I navigate the train? Where do I even go? So one thing that I learned was to ask questions and stay curious. Ask native New Yorkers, where do you like to go eat off campus? Or ask upperclassmen, even professors, what do you guys like to do on the weekends? Where do you go? And I think that really helped me a lot. So one thing I did my freshman year was create a list of every single place anyone would recommend me. And it was kind of like my own personal bucket list. And I kind of used that and checked off, oh, maybe I'll go here this weekend. Maybe I'll try this. And I don't regret it. I've had so many great experiences because of it.
Thank you again. Right, just thinking about, depending where you've grown up, right? A small town where you've had 300 to a few thousand people to suddenly thousands of people within the gates. And we have all of our first years live within the gates around what we call South Lawn. So we do have you in one area, in 4 residence halls, and sort of slowly get to know the city before you're just sort of jumping on trains and exploring. I would say bring a friend with you. You will have the opportunity during the orientation program to learn, if you haven't grown up in a city, how to get around on the city, to learn the subway system and feel good and confident about that as you venture out. But this city really does never sleep. There are opportunities around the clock. And again, I grew up in Western Massachusetts, which was a pretty homogeneous area. And I remember my first few months here, just sort of the noises and the bustle was a lot. And now when I go visit, it's hard to get to sleep because it's so quiet there. But we'll see how your transition goes and then what your path takes while you're here. I am sure our audience has some questions, but before we open it up, it would be great, again, the student panelists, if you think back and offer one piece of advice, something that you wish you had known before you transitioned in. So something that could be helpful for our new students as they arrive to campus. And Jaylaj, I'll start it with you.
Thank you. So if I were to say one thing, it's that Columbia has a lot to offer. Anything you think of, there's probably something for it, but having a lot of options can feel paralyzing at times. As Nyla mentioned, I think earlier in this session, coming in from high school, I had done like a ton of activities in Model UN, Science Olympiad, robotics. And so when I came here, I'd wanted to take it easy, but so many options kind of put me in a state of paralysis almost, and I had trouble choosing what to commit myself to. But I think I'm glad I tried something new. And in your first year, you've got to make sure not to be afraid to try something new. I think that's my biggest piece of advice. Reach out, be open, reach out to new people, people that you meet in your classes, just around on campus. It never hurts. I'll pass it to Carolyn.
Yeah, I would say take advantage of Columbia's resources. They're here for a reason, so don't be afraid to ask for help. One resource for me was scheduling times to meet with my advisor. She was super helpful whenever I had questions about the core or my major specific courses. Another great place that I went to was the Multicultural Affairs office, since it provided me with a lot of new friends. I met people of a similar background to me and also was able to find that safe space on campus. It may feel as though everyone has everything put together, but that is far from the truth. And if you need help to transition to Columbia or just someone to talk to, never be afraid or ashamed to look for those resources, because we're all at Columbia for a reason. So don't ever forget that. And I'll pass it on to Nyla next.
I would say probably to not believe in any stereotypes or rumors that you might hear about what it might take to fit in on campus. I think Dean Kromm was talking earlier about like the pressures of the hustle and bustle culture that you can sometimes feel on campus or just in the city at large. But there are so many diverse groups of people here, and you will find your community, and chasing status or constantly networking probably won't get you very far in terms of emotional development. So I would just stress to concentrate on taking these 4 years to focus on growing into the person that you want to be and building fulfilling relationships with the people who make you happy. And I'll pass it on to Timmy.
Thank you, Nyla. I think as you embark on your first year at college, I think you have to remember to find and foster a community that uplifts you and supports you. I remember yesterday, I don't know if any of you follow the Columbia Undergraduate Student Life Instagram, but I had a little takeover, and one of the students asked me, like, are the students at Columbia competitive? And I thought about it. I'm like, I've never felt like anybody in my classes were competing with me, or anybody that I was involved with was competing with me. But then I realized it's because I took the time, to find people that, want to help each other. We all want to see each other succeed. We don't want to see anybody fail. And I feel as though, like, I don't know if that's everybody's experience. So I just made sure to, when I answer the question, to reiterate, like, it depends on the people that you have around you. If you can create a community of people that support you in not just school, but just in life, in your mental health, then college will feel much more like a team effort where everybody's winning rather than a competition. So I think that's very important, to just find the right people and stay away from, the toxic ones. And I just think take advantage of the opportunities. I feel like going to the school, it definitely gives an upper hand on like kind of looking for jobs and building your resume. But besides all that, like that is nothing until you take care of your mental health and you just manage stress and, practice self-care practices. I don't know, I utilize Columbia's counseling and psychological services, also known as CPS, where I was able to see a therapist and really talk through the issues that I was facing to, just help me, clear my mind and really focus on the things that matter. And finally, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but explore New York City. It's so easily just to get, stuck up here during the school year between, 110 and 116. But, if you take the time to, go to a park or, when it gets cold, the roller rinks on like Fifth Ave or wherever they are, just leave the city. And, it's very transformative. This time is transformative in your life. So I think take full advantage of your location and what it offers you. And not to pass it to Asha.
Thanks, Timmy. One piece of advice I would give when transitioning into Columbia is to not put too much pressure on yourself and to be patient with yourself. It's really easy to set your expectations really high, especially if you hear about how great college was from your parents or people who have already been through college. So it's definitely important not to create these notions of how your college experience is supposed to go. So instead of focusing on how it's supposed to go, focus on how it is going and kind of just live in the moment, live day by day. This is a transition period, which means it might come with some challenges and some growing pains. So it's important to, like I said, be patient with yourself, but also with the other students that you're surrounded by, and just to have grace for everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much to our panel for their insight. We've gotten a few questions while we were chatting. And I'll just start throwing out some of them, and whoever feels comfortable from our panel answering them, or if some of our staff would like to answer some of these questions as well, feel free to jump in. The first one is, how did you become familiar and comfortable with the New York City transit system? And do you have any tips?
I think I could take this one. I am not a native New Yorker. I grew up in Philly, which is it's a city, but not the subway system, nothing. I don't think any city compares to New York City subway system. But one tip, I have two tips. One, first and foremost, don't be afraid to ask. There's always an MTA worker in a booth at every station. So wherever you at, if you can ask them, your stop will be 116 Columbia University. They will lead you right in front of the gates. Like I know you see the picture in the background of our Zoom. The stop is right there, and you'll get out, and that'll be the first thing you see. So if you just ask them that, they can help guide you to where you go. And one thing a tip that I was given by a native New Yorker my freshman year is, if you can make it to Times Square, 42nd Street, that is like the hub of stations in Manhattan, and just find the one, and the one is the subway that will take you right in front of the school. There's a lot of apps like Move It, NYC Subway Map app. Joanne sent it in the chat. Those are very useful. There's Google Maps and all that, but definitely I think the most important tip is, don't be afraid to ask. Like, MTA workers, they're all over. Yeah.
And I will just jump in, one as a parent, but two as a parent of two kids who have grown up really using the city and really started subway transport kind of on their own in third and fourth grade. But I do think it's important to know, or at least have the sense of where you're going before you go. And so literally, if you have never been to the city and you have never been on the subway and you've never even been downtown, then look at those maps, the subway maps that were sent out in the chat, and at least have the sense, because we certainly any big city, you do need to think realistically about safety. And so having confidence and knowing where you're going can certainly help you.
Just to add one more thing to that, I'm from, like I said earlier, the Midwest. I'm from Indiana, and there's virtually no public transportation there. So one thing that I would suggest is to always travel with a buddy or go with someone, because if you get lost, you're going to freak out on your own. But if you're with someone, you guys can figure it out together, and you might be less nervous like going up and asking people too. So I would definitely say always go with someone at the beginning if that's something that makes you super nervous.
Just to add as well to that, even though I'm from Brooklyn, it was very hard for me to adjust to being in the Upper West Side, since I mainly took the J and M line my entire life. And so one app that really helped me is called the Transit app. So if you look on the App Store, the Google Store, it's green and it has a T, I believe, on it. And it shows you people's reviews on the ride. So like, how's the ride going? If it's super crowded, it gives you multiple different options of different trains you can take or buses to get to that same location. So I would definitely download that app, or at least have Google Maps on your phone. And again, like Dean Kromm said, like, be aware of where you're going beforehand, so you have a vision and a path before you actually go there.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And another question we got is, what was summer before arriving on campus like? And how did you kind of go about it coming into your freshman year, into your first year? How did you kind of go about the idea of studying abroad, internships, research opportunities, things like that?
Yeah, so I can partly answer this. So I think for me, coming in, it's a little weird because it feels odd to just email professors or like directly approach people. That's sort of what you have to do at the start. There are like boards, and there's a Center for Career Education, which can definitely help you get kickstarted. They have a lot of really good advisors and are open to talk and have offices to schedule meetings for. But also just like directly emailing in. Like for me, as a material science major, one of the reasons I applied to Columbia was because there were certain professors' research I was super interested in. And I emailed a couple professors, some of them said no, I wasn't experienced enough, I didn't have enough knowledge about the situation. But eventually I found a professor who said yes, and it can teach you a lot too that first semester. In freshman year, I think if I had emailed into the same process freshman and fall, I probably would have gotten something as well. I think I was just kind of focused on settling in, which honestly I do suggest. You don't need to jump and get started on everything right away. I do have friends who started their work freshman fall, jumped right into it, but just make sure you take time to get settled in first and kind of do what's right for you. But definitely freshman year, freshman summer, you can get internships and positions without doubt.
I can also add that coming off of freshman year, you get exposed to a lot more opportunities, I think. I have a lot of friends who are studying abroad, especially two of my closest friends are actually going to Oxford for the year with both their majors. I think one is English and one is history. So that's a really great program. I've had friends who've studied abroad in Paris, whether that's doing the core or like more specific major requirements and stuff like that. So there's a lot of opportunities once you decide like what it is you want to be doing once you get into Columbia major wise and things like that. And then I think there's also like kind of a funny joke amongst our class that's just like everybody in the class of 2025 just stayed on campus over the summer because it just feels like so many people from the school year have just like found many different ways and opportunities to stay in the city. A lot of people have been able to stay in the city for free or get their housing paid for. So there are just a bunch of opportunities to take advantage of the summertime, whether that's at Columbia, across the world, or wherever.
Awesome, thank you. And are there resources available to first generation students who might not be as familiar with college life available on campus?
Yeah, I can take that one. There are a ton of resources and organizations within the Multicultural Affairs Office. There's one event that's my favorite called TGIFF, which means Thank God It's FLI Friday. And so we host a lot of events and mixers so that FLI students can get together and ask questions. There's also the FLI or FLI Student Advisory Board and resource teams. There are also FlyNet, which is sort of like a network of undergraduate students that are first generation and or low income. And there you can apply to be a part of the board and things like that. They host events and all that good stuff. Again, Multicultural Affairs is the perfect place to receive those resources. And because the people hosting the TGIFFs or the FLI events are students, we come in with a similar perspective to you. So you can ask us questions. I will hopefully be working there again in the fall, so you might see me there. So feel free to ask anything once we're in the office. But yeah, there's also the food pantry, just so many resources that you can access within the overall Multicultural Affair office.
Awesome, thank you. And another question we got is, and some of you touched on just exploring New York, getting off campus. What's one of your favorite things to do off campus?
I can take this one.
Sorry.
One of my favorite things to do off campus, it really just depends on how much time I have. So if I have a bunch of classes that day, I will literally walk to Riverside Park and just walk around and watch the soccer leagues happen, because it just reminds me that school's not everything and that there are people like enjoying themselves and I can also enjoy myself. I also love just walking next to the water. I love being outside. So any sort of activity where I can walk along the Hudson, for example, being in Riverside, or just going to museums. My friends and I love to just look for food in the city. So we're like, okay, like we're getting oxtail today, and we'll just look up the best oxtail spots, like ask people around campus and things like that.
Yeah, I can also put my 2 cents in for this. So for me first, there's a lot of nice running routes around. So you can go, Central Park is not too far from campus. It's like a couple avenues. So you can go down and through Central Park around the lake in the middle of Central Park. You can go down Riverside, like Asha was saying. You can go right next to the Hudson River and right along. The view is beautiful in the morning with the sunrise. Highly recommend. You can also go uptown and downtown. If you go downtown far enough, you'll run into the piers, which is super awesome. I also like going out and trying out new pizza spots and coffee shops. So when I'm kind of over spending all my time studying in the libraries, I'll just take a day off on like a Friday afternoon or Saturday afternoon, and I'll go to, I have a whole Google Maps list. You can make these lists of coffee shops. And so I go visit one of them, maybe one that I like, that I know, or a new one that I want to try. And kind of same with pizza places. I've done a couple pizza hopping tours and kind of trying places with higher ratings. So right now my own ratings, it's a lot of fun just to try new food in the vicinity. And, a lot of the time it doesn't have to be super expensive. If you, go places, if you look for it, you can definitely find good deals wherever you go.
Awesome. Thank you, Jalij and Asha. Another question we got was kind of adjusting to the rigor of the academics here at Columbia and maintaining a social life. So can some of you tell us how you kind of go about that balance of extracurriculars or your general social life with classes?
Yeah, so I would suggest first and foremost to set boundaries and learn how to say no. We've talked about this a lot during this webinar, but you can get overwhelmed and overloaded very easily here. So I would suggest maybe looking at your class schedule, taking like 2 to 3 weeks to get settled into that, and then deciding, okay, can I add something else onto this or can't I? So for example, like Jalij, I was also on a club sports team. I was on the club volleyball team, and I started to realize that that became a little too much. So I was like, I still want to play volleyball. So I just did intramural instead, which is a lower commitment. So I would suggest looking for alternatives to extracurricular activities if they get too stressful, and learn how to say no. A lot of the clubs here are very forgiving and understanding. So if you have to drop out of a club mid-semester, they will understand, and they'll say, come back next semester. The clubs will always be there, but your mental health and being able to balance things is a non-negotiable.
Yeah, I mean, I can also add that my freshman spring, I took 6 classes and a seminar class, and I was absolutely floored. I didn't have any time to do anything. I barely saw any of my friends, just sitting in the library studying all day. And so it's really important to keep in mind, if you're gonna overload yourself with classes, you have to be aware of their difficulty and time commitment you'll need for each class. Because it's really easy to just fall into that hole when you're trying to do well in every class, right? You don't want to, if you're prioritizing your academics, you want to do well. And so it can get really tough. So I highly suggest sticking to the credits suggested by your advisor. And if you are going to take a lot of classes, making sure you've talked to upperclassmen or people who've taken the classes, the professors, to make sure it's reasonable, just considering the workload of each of those classes into how much of your time you need to be blocking out, making sure you're at least planning one day for yourself where you can kind of sit back and not do a ton of classwork.
Real
Can I
quick,
just-
I just wanted to add to what Jalij was saying in terms of looking for difficult/easy classes. There is Virgil, where you can see professor evaluations, and we have a website called Culpa, CULPA. You can also see professor evaluations. So usually one class will have multiple sections. So please read the evaluations and decide which professor would fit best with you. That will completely change your semester.
And I actually just wanted to comment on the notion of the students and studying all day. And certainly it's Columbia. You are here for your academics, but something, having lived here a while, that I have really appreciated about the community as we've kind of emerged post-pandemic. I see more students out hanging out on the lawns, and the lawns are often open and low steps. Apparently students say it's low beach and hang out there. And so on nice days, there are literally hundreds of students out on the lawns and relaxing between classes. And that balance is so important. And then another one I just wanted to throw in this city that never sleeps, Our health colleagues, if they were on this, would say you should sleep 6 to 8 hours a night to stay healthy. And that can be a little bit of an adjustment too as you arrive. But sleep is really, really important.
Definitely. Another question we have is, do a lot of students join fraternities and sororities?
Since we haven't touched on that yet, I'm happy to share. So I would say, and students feel free to back me up or disagree, but I would say that most students I know who join fraternity or sorority life here didn't necessarily expect to, that it is a way that they can get involved socially, but it's not often the primary social connection. We have about 28 chapters, sororities, fraternities, or multicultural Greek organizations. Numbers wise, we have seen a little bit of a dip in participation post-pandemic. So I don't know if we'll get back to where we were before. Fraternities you can join in the fall of freshman year, although I would encourage folks not to. Sorority life doesn't do recruitment until the spring, late January, early February. But there certainly are some students who organize their life that way, and it's really important and an important part of their experience for those who do.
So I can kind of chime on this a little bit. I'm not in a fraternity, but a lot of my close friends are. We do have one committee member who is in a fraternity. I think he'll speak after me. But they all really love it. And it's a great time for them. I think you have to check if it's right for you. And there will be a fraternity sorority life mixer or like event out on Butler Lawns on one of the days during NSOP. So you can look out for that. That's definitely a good time to go and see if it's right for you. At least the fraternities will do a lot of recruiting at that time, and you can go and go to each booth and kind of check them all out. I think it's good to keep an open mind. Like Dean Kromm said, a lot of people don't come in expecting to join a fraternity, but it's definitely a great way to meet people that are similar to you.
Thank you, Judge. I'm the committee member that he was speaking about. I'm a part of KDR, Kappa Delta Rho. I joined my junior year. And yeah, I think what Dean Kromm said was like, right. It's like the best way I can kind of at this school, from my experience, the best way I can describe like fraternity and sorority life is like just like another club. Like it's not something that is like dire that if you're not in, it's not, you know what I mean? It's not like one of those universities where sometimes it can feel like that. I just see it as like just a community of just like friends that might live together, throw events together. There's a lot of, last year we had a philanthropy event where we collected canned goods for a food drive, and that was really fun. So it's just like, I think it's definitely something to look into if it's something that you've been interested in before. But it's definitely not like, I don't think it's a big kind of social space like at this school as it might be at others, but it's definitely something to look into. It's a good place to find friends and, even talk to a good alumni network of people that have gone to Columbia that were in fraternities and sororities in years before. So, yeah.
Awesome. And then I think I keep saying 2 more questions, but there's so many great questions. Is there a place where you can see all the on-campus social events? So where do you guys usually hear about events on campus, whether they're social, etc.?
So I think there is a couple places. I know a lot of events that are ticketed will use Evites or like virtual platforms. There's usually poster boards, QR codes you can scan around campus. A lot of it is word of mouth recruiting. I think that there is some kind of startup that some students are working on for that nature. But there's also like a social bulletin, that sort of thing. But I think word of mouth is kind of the main point at the moment. But you can definitely go around to ask. I think talking with upperclassmen is always really good to see what events are kind of going on that weekend. Usually it's run by clubs or some sort of that sort of thing.
Yeah, I would also add to that social media is a really good way. to get that sort of word of mouth. Almost every club has like a PR chair, a person who's dedicated to like the Instagram and stuff like that, and putting out advertising what they're working on. So I think definitely following a lot of the clubs that you're interested in will definitely help you to see sort of what's going on around campus.
Also to add, there's an app that I believe is in development. There is early access to our upcoming app, and it's from the Bulletin. So the Bulletin was a kind of an email list that you could have joined that they would send like things on campus to your email. I believe there's a new app coming, but if you just go on Instagram or online, the Bulletin like CU, you can find their website, and I'm pretty sure they're coming up with an app soon. That's for me. Like, I know not everybody, I'm not really on social media like that. So I think being on the email list and hopefully their website and app, it was a great way for me last year to find out events. Cause I remember that was my big issue. I'm like, I don't know what's going on campus sometimes. And I just wanted to be more involved. So that app really helped find things to do on campus.
Yeah, just one final thing to add to that. I think bi-weekly or weekly, we tend to get these newsletters from one of the Columbia offices here, and they'll have a list of events that are going on that Columbia offices have planned. For example, during finals, or honestly, just during the semester, they'll bring dogs to Butler, like therapy dogs for people to pet, and they'll do things like that. So I would say, honestly, just check your email. There are a lot of cool things that Columbia plans for the students.
I was going to reiterate that actually, so thank you. But right, so there's the students, and I think using the Bulletin, it is organized by students, and they're trying to get kind of every club, because that's something students have been asking for a long time. So that's a great way to find out what student clubs are offering. But then I'll say it 1,000 times, read your emails. Read your emails. There is so much information that students miss because they haven't. And so we do. So Columbia College and Engineering, each of the schools will send out 2 newsletters a week. On Mondays, it's really applications that are due across a whole host of offices. So it's not just from Undergraduate Student Life. They really try to assemble all of the applications in all of these offices that are coming up. And then they send another one out on Thursdays that really does take a look both in the city and other cool opportunities that other offices or departments are putting on. So that's another one. And then I'll add one of my favorites, and I think you have to opt into it. It's called the Arts Initiative. I think Joanne sent information out, but just one example of something that they do. Every Monday during the academic year, the jazz program plays jazz music at the Forum, which is at 125th Street. And I have seen some incredible jazz musicians. Miller Theater is on campus. They do something once a month as well. I saw one pretty crazy one in February, but I saw a really great one over the summer. So Arts Initiative is another great way to find out about really cool stuff.
And can I just say one thing? We share the student newsletter with all of the parents and families. So make sure, parents and families, that you keep your email address up to date, because we will share the student newsletter, and it's a good way for you to remind your student to check their email about all the good stuff that's happening on campus.
And then our very last question, I promise, which I feel like it would be a missed opportunity to not take advantage of the fact that we have some of our NSOP staff here. What will NSOP be like for incoming students?
I can definitely tackle this question because NSOP will be amazing. I'm so excited to meet everyone coming into Columbia. It'll be really great. It's basically like a transitionary period for you before you start classes and things get kind of, I don't want to say serious, but before things like the academic semester starts. and you'll have the opportunity to go into the city. We have lots of nice on-campus events planned as well. We have times where the entire class will be together and we'll just be getting hype, learning the fight song, a bunch of really cute stuff. And it might sound a bit overwhelming, but I want to stress that just like taking it a day at a time. I know earlier I was talking about how NSOP can be a very different experience for everybody, but just taking it a day at a time and seeing it for what it is, just like a week before everybody gets onto campus, we're focused on you and getting you acclimated to the environment, and it'll be great.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, Carolyn. Yeah.
just to piggyback off of what Nyla was saying, there's going to be a lot of mixers and events for you to go to meet people outside of your orientation group as well. I believe that yesterday you guys found out what immersion experience you're a part of. And that's one of the biggest things on Monday and Tuesday of NSOP week is your immersion experience. However, for the rest of the week, Jellich here is coordinating a lot of the 4 school events. So you'll be able to interact with people from Barnard, GS, and also within CC and Cs. So yeah, just a lot of great identity-based events as well. And yeah, it's a great time. It's a fun time for all of us.
Yeah, so I can speak to that. So basically we have a lot of events slated for you the weekend and Thursday, Thursday, Friday are kind of my time. So that we have mixers for every kind of identity and student group you can think of. You know, our CC and ESC have info sessions. We have big showcases. We have a performance showcase where a lot of the performance groups on campus will give you a nice show. It's an open mic night that students can volunteer for and showcase their talents from singing, dancing, et cetera, whatever you want to showcase, you can sign up for that. You know, there's a ton of things to do. And you'll have an app called Guidebook, which I think we mentioned, which will tell you everything you need to know, all the events happening. And just keep an eye out for posters and advertising, because if you want to do something, I promise you there'll be something to do during NSOP.
Awesome. And unfortunately, we are all out of time for additional questions. However, like I mentioned earlier, we would still love to hear any questions that might have not gotten answered today. So you can reach out via email at ugrad-family@columbia.edu or ugrad-studentlife@columbia.edu. Again, a big thank you to our panelists for joining us today and to you all for joining us. If you haven't already, please make sure you register for the next webinar, which is next Friday, August 4th at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to learn more about residential life, housing, and dining. And on that note, thank you so much for joining us and take care, everyone.